Hey guys, Tomb Raider 6, The Angel of Darkness was released in 2003, sold 2.5 million copies, and was Core Design's final Tomb Raider game. AOD was in development for 3 years, was delayed twice, and unfortunately had horrible press throughout the process. In my opinion, with Eidos pressuring Core Design to release before it was ready, marked the game's demise. With that being said though, Angel of Darkness was a fantastic game and a great step towards next-gen Lara. I can't believe this is my final Core Design review, but as Lara once said, let's go adventuring. The game opens with a FMV and instantly sets the tone for the game. Brutal killings, known as the Monstrum killings, have been going on, and to date there have been 17 victims. Next, we see Lara visit Von Croy's apartment, where he tells her he's been tracking down 5 obscura paintings, and that he's being stalked. Lara's still pissed off from what happened in Egypt, and they start to argue. There's a scuffle, gunshots, and the whole scene is chaotic. Next we know Von Croy is dead, Lara has blood on her hands, and the SWAT team has just shown up. Before the first level begins, another FMV plays of Lara bolting it from the police. A Rottweiler bites her bag and rips it from her back. I couldn't help but feel a little remorse for her legendary backpack, but she has no choice to continue forward. The first level acts as a training area, similar to The Last Revelation and Chronicles. The graphics look incredible compared to the previous games, and Lara has a whole new look. Her first outfit, jeans, jean jacket, dark tank top, are perfect for the setting she's in. Lara walks you through the level, explaining how to maneuver and everything you'd expect from a tutorial. Something new in the series is the stamina bar. Lara can only hold on for so long until it depletes and she lets go. This adds to the tension when shimmying across ledges, and I think it was a great addition. Something else that's new is the auto-grab system, and it's the one thing in the game I hated. I found it really annoying throughout the entire game, especially when you don't want her to grab onto something, but she does anyway. Overall, the controls aren't as fluid as they used to be, and Lara seems to stagger more, and her movements aren't as smooth as in previous games. Another annoying addition is anytime you do a running jump and grab, her right hand always slips off and you have to wait for her to grab back on. I think if this was intermittent instead of constant, it would have made for better gameplay. The level is fun to explore, has searchable drawers, cupboards, and pickups. Something else that's new are the health restore options. Instead of the usual med packs like in the previous games, there are chocolate bars, bandages, health pills, and small and large health packs. The crowbar makes another appearance and is useful for breaking locks and opening doors. Something else that's new in the Angel of Darkness is stealth. It really fits the style of the game, and it's so much fun sneaking up on an enemy, choking, kicking, and finally knocking them out. It's different from your typical run-in guns blazing approach, and it's awesome. Lara gets spotted at the end of the level and makes a mad dash for the nearest building. Overall, the level is pretty linear and straightforward, but makes for a good training level and gets you warmed up. The next level is pretty tense, as the cops are trying to bash the door down and you have to act quickly. If you're too slow, they'll burst through and it's game over. While the building is small, there are several floors and rooms to explore. One thing that I found really weird in this game is Lara's running animation. Either the steps are too close together or she's trying to be really careful, but it looks like she's creeping up the stairs, and it always looked really funny to me. While making your way up the building, there are sections of the floor that are missing that you need to jump across. They can be a little harder to line up since the back hop has been removed, but after a few times doing it without it, it's pretty easy to judge how far she can jump. Throughout the building are several pickups, ammo, health, and a battery. Things get even more tense when the police chuck in some tear gas that brings up a poison meter on Lara's health. Rooms have fresh air only momentarily, so it really keeps you moving quickly. Part of the level is finding keys for the elevator so you can reach the next level. At one point, things get even more panicky. A quick cutscene shows the police bursting through the doors at the bottom. We finally find a Vector R35 semi-automatic gun, but it's probably better to save ammo and get the heck out of there. While this level was small, it was tense, kept you moving, and added to the feeling of really being on the run. Things get even more intense during the next level. A helicopter spots Lara and starts shooting at her. There's a zip line and connecting buildings you need to make your way through, or across to get away from the chopper. It definitely puts you into panic mode, but it's worth noting the helicopter stops shooting at some point, but you probably didn't notice the first time through. The buildings are fun to explore, and if you take the time, there's various pickups scattered in the rooms. There's also a few ways across the rooftops, which makes the level worth replaying, so you can explore everywhere. It's a lot of fun sliding down the roof, breaking through the glass ceilings, and making tough jumps. Overall, the level is straightforward with 2 paths, but the panic of the helicopter chase really makes it fun. The level ends with a cutscene of Lara escaping the chopper. Lara heads to Carvier's apartment and tells her Von Croy is dead. Here's where some RPG elements come into play for the first time in Tomb Raider. You get to pick how Lara answers. If you're rude with her, you won't get a package that he left for her. I think this was an interesting addition to the game, but as the game progresses, it doesn't really matter what you pick from here on in. We learn that Von Croy thought he was being stalked and wanted to leave his notebook in case something happened to him. Carvier really pushes Lara to find out what happened and if she killed him. She ends up calling the police on her. When the cutscene finishes, we get to explore her apartment. It's really small and there's not a lot to do. It's more of a filler level than anything else. You can rummage through drawers and cabinets. No wonder she called the police on Lara. But if you take too long, the police burst in and it's game over. Overall, I think this level would have been better off as an extended cutscene since there wasn't much to do, and it really just carries the story forward. The next level is the biggest one so far and features a few interconnecting levels. When the level starts, a short cutscene plays of Lara waking up in an abandoned subway car. She's trying to locate Louis Bouchard and asks a couple of bums where she can find him. They tell her to try a cafe. There are various characters you run into during this level that you can talk with and pick what Lara says. It's a neat idea like I mentioned before, but since you get the same information anyway, it doesn't really make sense to do it this way. If anything, it makes the game a little more interactive, but again, I prefer sitting back and watching the cutscene instead. This part of the city is pretty deserted other than a handful of characters you can talk with. The level looks interesting, but you spend more time navigating the streets than doing anything exciting. There are maps you can check out if you get lost, which is cool. There's a pawn shop nearby where you can sell items you found so far in the game. You get cash for selling things, but you're never able to buy anything in the game with it. Maybe if Core Design had longer to finish the game, they might have had other plans for it. When we explore the Cafe Metro, we get the first glimpse of Curtis Trent, the soon-to-be playable character. Lara chats with another guy at the cafe and asks about Bouchard. She offers to solve any problems he might have in exchange for info, and he asks her to retrieve something from him from a nearby club. This level, while pretty big, feels very empty, and because there wasn't much to do, was pretty bland. It would have been better if there were more bystanders and cars going by, even if you couldn't interact with them. One of the interconnecting levels, Le Serpent Rouge, is one of my favorite levels in the game. It's a club in the city that's closed, but crawling with guards. You start out in the basement, and it's really fun sneaking up on the first guard and taking him out. While there's been a few baddies so far, it's really in this level where the real killing begins. One thing that's super frustrating about the combat system is how Lara ends up dancing around in a circle or moving really strangely when she locks onto a target. I'm sure this would have been polished if the game had been given proper time to release, but otherwise it's something that's annoying throughout the rest of the game, but something you'll just need to accept. On the other hand, a huge plus for the combat system that I mentioned before is being able to punch, kick, and roundhouse kick guards. It's great if you're trying to conserve ammo or you're just wanting to sneak up on them and take them out quietly. The absolute best part of this level is turning on the music in the club and exploring while listening to some cool techno music and having a full lighting rig light up the place. It's upbeat, awesome to kill guards to the music, and super fun making your way up the lighting rig as it's moving around. Overall, the club is very linear, but the way it was designed was awesome. It's challenging working your way higher into the room, and the mini puzzle to collect the box is fun. Once you've collected the box and you head back to the cafe, he tells her someone else was asking for Bouchard after she left, Curtis. Apparently Bouchard is lying low, but he knows a discreet route to get there. We head to another small section of the Parisian ghetto, a herbalist shop, and we find out the doorman is Bouchard's bodyguard. We also get an address and a passcode for a nearby apartment. In order to get to Bouchard's hideout, we have to go through a graveyard to find the entrance. The woman in the apartment we just visited tells Lara it's the only way past the doorman and to be careful of the ledges. This section is pretty small, but it's fun to explore. There's a dog that attacks Lara, and you can choose how to get rid of it. It's really funny to punch and kick the dog because Lara goes around and around in circles trying to get a hit in. The rest of the level involves jumping around the graveyard, knocking over statues, and breaking open coffins to increase Lara's strength, and ultimately finding the way into the hideout. The tunnel into Bouchard's hideout is really grungy, dirty, full of rats, and nasty-looking water. There are parts of the floor that break away, exposed pipes, and blocked-off passageways. The main section of the hideout has lots of old hospital beds and a creepy dude that looks like one of Sophia Lee's experiments. It's kind of a creepy place, and you definitely are ready to attack should anything jump out at you. Eventually, we find Bouchard at the end of the room, and another interactive conversation begins. Lara mentions Van Croy and says he was looking for maps on the Louvre. You need to be very careful when talking with Bouchard because if you're too snippy with him, he'll shoot her and it's game over. If you're nice enough, he'll refer you to Danielle from the pawn shop and give Lara passports to deliver to him. Overall, this is a pretty linear level, but I like the grunginess and creepiness of the hideout. Before we make our way back to the pawn shop, we have a quick stopover at the church. This is a very tiny section of the Parisian ghetto area, but it's important for a power-up on Lara's strength. There's a boxing match going on inside, and you can bet on who you think's going to win. You bet all of your money for his gold watch, and if you lose, there goes your savings, but doesn't have an impact on the game. This is a fun, brief stopover while heading back. When we get back to the pawn shop, a quick cutscene plays where a super creepy dude bumps into Lara. We'll be seeing him again. René isn't behind the counter this time, so once you've placed the passports on the counter, you can snoop around. Once you venture downstairs, we find poor René in a pile of blood. Of course, we loot his body and get a passcode and wallet. Beyond his body is another room loaded with stuff that was intended for Van Croy. A map of the archaeological dig, map of some sewers, guns, ammo, and explosives. As soon as you pick everything up, sensors suddenly turn on and it triggers a bomb in the next room. It's a crazy panic moment again, and you've got to get out before everything explodes. It's actually pretty challenging because the camera is fixed and you have to run out of the room and sprint like hell before Lara is burned to death. Once you get past the fiery explosion in one piece, we're rewarded with another cutscene. We see Curtis sitting outside having a smoke while Lara makes her grand escape. The cutscene switches over to Eckhart and 3 other unknown characters, and he says Van Croy has found the 4th painting and it's time to awaken the sleeper. We get a quick view of a strange-looking creature with claws, and he dispatches his team to retrieve the 4th painting. Overall, this level was very linear and small, but escaping the explosion and being rewarded with a cutscene that carried the story forward gave it more value. After getting a little scorched, it's the perfect time for Lara to switch into her next outfit, and it looks awesome. Camo pants, a cropped tank top, and vest. She also managed to snag a backpack from somewhere, and this whole look is perfect for the next section. The Louvre storm drains are gross, filled with nasty-looking water, garbage, and there's a bunch of rats lurking around. They'll nip at your feet but won't do any damage. This level is awesome. There's ladders, turnable valves, dangerous fans, long drops, climbable drain pipes, levers, and rushing water. At times, I kind of got some Tomb Raider 2 offshore rig vibes when exploring the storm drains. Overall, the level is really fun to explore, and finding the right valves to open to control the water flow is a lot of fun. My one complaint is there's a ton of dialogue in the level from Lara saying, "I can climb up on that," or "I think I can make that jump," that really aren't necessary at this point in the game. Fine for the training level, but best to let us figure it out afterwards. We finally get to use the explosives from the pawn shop at the end of the level, and it's quite the fabulous explosion. Lara tells herself to dive, and if you don't, kapow with the explosion. Everything is burning, and the top layer of the water is also on fire. It's fun working your way out through the new opening in the wall, which gives us access to the next level. The Louvre Galleries is another one of my favorite levels in the game. You get to be all badass, sneaking around, avoiding setting off traps, and snapping a few necks here and there. Up to this point, there hasn't really been a ton of killing, so it's great fun to take out a bunch of guards however you want. Some of the guards have tasers that they have no problem using on Lara, but it takes quite a few hits to kill her, so they're not overly threatening. I personally like to use the Dart SS to knock them out, or the K2 Impactor to electrocute them. These weapons are perfect if you can sneak up on them. This level really gives you plenty of opportunities to kill how you want, which is awesome. The lasered rooms are so much fun. If you touch one of them, it'll trigger an alarm, bars will block all of the exits, and guards will sweep in and kill you. It's so much fun and very entrapment to crawl under them, shimmy beside them, and jump through them. It's very intense as you time your next move, especially when the lasers are moving. Beside from the lasers, there's security cameras that will trigger more guards if you're spotted. Moving forward through the level, the guards now have guns, so it's best to spot them and take them out before they spot you, since they'll do serious damage. This level has a lot of VCI headquarters vibes, and I love being stealthy while stealing keycards, shutting off lasers, and the best part, sneaking past the Mona Lisa painting into the ducts and outside. The rooftop section of this level is awesome. The sky looks incredible, and it's fun exploring and figuring out how to get to other sections of the Louvre. You can explore buildings, open windows, break locks, climb more drain pipes, all while taking out more guards, and of course, stealing their keys. Once you gain access to the other building, it's really fun peeking through different security cameras and exploring all of the rooms along the main hallway. It's really cool how we learn more about the Obscura paintings by searching Carvier's office. Overall, this level is fantastic. It has the perfect amount of exploring, puzzle solving, and killing. The next level, the Archaeological Dig, is in a fairly small room, but the excavation site itself is pretty deep, giving more room to explore. There's a few trailers to check out and some guards lurking around. One of the coolest parts of the level is an X-ray machine that you can use to scan for a symbol amongst bones and other debris under the ground. After you've cleared the top level, it's time to head to the scaffolding and work your way into the excavation site. There's various guards to take out, climbable walls, and transversable rocks to monkey swing across. There's a huge puzzle door with a bunch of spinning symbols, and you need to use Von Croy's journal from your inventory to help solve it. It's fairly straightforward, however, if you never check the journal, it would be more difficult. Overall, this is one of my least favorite levels. It's small, linear, and not very difficult. The next level, Tomb of Ancients, has an eerie vibe, and after we emerge from the tunnels, we get a quick cutscene of the area. There's a huge pit that we'll have to work our way down without splattering Lara into little pieces at the bottom. Another addition to Lara's moves is the ability to climb at extreme angles. Before she could climb straight up a wall or around the corner, and now she can get to the point where it's so steep she has to let go with her feet and proceed only by hand. It's pretty cool since it makes the path less obvious, and having the stamina bar adds urgency to get across in time. There are levers, moving cement blocks, and a skeleton that's reminiscent from Tomb Raider 4. You can't kill him, but it's still fun to beat the crap out of him and try to knock him into the pit. The last part of the level is pretty fun, featuring darts, shooting spikes, and a timed door run. Overall, this is a fairly small level, however there's lots of challenges, and the atmosphere is really cool. The Hall of Seasons is a huge level that has 4 connecting mini-levels attached. We start in a big room with various pressure pads in the center. Different combinations open certain doors, and it's here where things get a little confusing. Once you open the first door, you come across various levers. Pull the wrong one and you're dropped into the section below. There's a track running along the floor, it's visibly hot in the tunnel, there's torches, deep pits, and you get the feeling something bad is about to happen. As soon as you begin moving down the track, retractable spikes, smashing boulders, sharp claws, and a huge rolling spike wheel all have one mission: make sure you don't make it out. The whole section is super reminiscent of Tomb Raider 4's traps and is awesome. You have to time everything just right, and it's here where the commando crawl is really useful. There's also spinning blades that rotate horizontally and vertically, which are deadly. Once you finish the circuit, there's an elevator that will bring you back up to the main level. You'll need to try another lever and hope this time you don't get dropped below. It took me a few times to realize only one of the 3 levers led to where you wanted to go, and had many trips to the trap-filled basement. It's possible to backflip if you're really quick to avoid falling, and then try another lever. You exit the Hall of Seasons for the first time once you pull the correct lever and enter through the door. There's no particular order for this section, which makes it fun, and the trap-filled basement is challenging and adds a lot of tension. Wrath of Beast is one of the 4 smaller connecting levels. Once the gate opens, it reveals a creepy statue at the far end of the room holding fire in both of its hands. A FMV shows the room shaking and suddenly parts of the floor break away. The idea, of course, is to make it to the other side of the room, and it's pretty challenging since pieces of the floor continue to collapse, some faster than others, and sometimes you need to fall down a bit with the floor to reach the other sections. Overall, it's pretty tense and a good challenge to test your reflexes. Once you reach the other side, there's an earth crystal pickup, and suddenly the floor repairs itself, leaving a hole in the center of the room. Skeletons with swords and shields show up and light their swords on fire from torches in the room. If they touch you, Lara catches on fire instantly. To make leaving the room even more difficult, they hurl fireballs at you, so you've got to avoid these while activating 2 levers in order to open the exit. You can definitely try shooting the skeletons into the hole, but you'll end up wasting ammo. Maybe try kicking them in instead. Overall, this is a great mini section. Next up is Neptune's Hall, and is super reminiscent of some tombs in Tomb Raider 4. You enter into a really pretty room with fountains, torches, and of course another skeleton. He also hurls fireballs, but he's really easy to shoot into the hole below. This is my favorite mini section out of the 4. There's lots of swimming with underwater blades, levers, and there's even some fish to keep you company. Different levers raise and lower the water level, giving you access to other rooms. There are partially flooded tunnels leading to other sections, and you'll come across spike traps that can be very difficult to pass without taking damage. Overall, this section looks fantastic. The water graphics are gorgeous, the traps are challenging, and it's really tense keeping an eye on Lara's air supply to make sure you don't drown. We collect a water crystal at the end of the section before heading back to the Hall of Seasons to locate the 3rd area. The 3rd section, Breath of Hades, takes place in a tiny room with a bunch of stone faces along the walls, blowing gusts of wind. There's a huge pit in the center of the room with a variety of wobbly logs, and it's a long way down. It actually looks more difficult than what it is. You need to jump across from log to log, timing it carefully when the next gust of wind blows. If you jump too far or jump into the wind, Lara will fall to her death. Once we make it across, we pick up the air crystal, the wind stops, and it's easy to get back across. Overall, this section is a lot easier than the other ones, but it's still fun. The 4th and final mini-section, the Sanctuary of the Flame, is the hardest one in my opinion. The room is huge with flames shooting out everywhere, uneven blocks, gaps in the floor, and a pool of lava right below. Getting to the other side of the room isn't easy. Some blocks will shoot up into the air when you step on them, and Lara will catch on fire in a second. At one point, there's huge waves of fire that spread across the room all of a sudden, and it's almost impossible to avoid it. This room is really challenging, and when you make it across, you get the fire crystal. Once you've completed the 4 mini-sections, the crystals unlock a door downstairs where the circular section filled with traps are. The room below contains some sort of a machine with ladders, valves, and walkways. It's fairly straightforward turning off the valves, and it's fun doing some monkey swinging on chains and making sure not to fall into the fiery pit. After all of the valves have been turned on, the machine comes to life with tons of spinning blades that will do serious damage to Lara. It's fun working your way back out of the room, try not to get nicked by one of the blades. Upstairs, the pressure pads are now moving, enabling us to work our way higher into the room. Several skeletons burst out of the walls, and the walkway gets pretty crowded, but they're still easily avoidable. This section is a lot of fun as we climb higher and higher. There's a section suddenly where you have to climb at an extreme angle to reach the ceiling, then transverse across that's really tricky, because Lara can't hold on forever, and it's a long drop if you don't make it in time. The next area can be really difficult the first time. We enter into a room with statues and fire. Lara reads an inscription which triggers some sort of creepy ghost all of a sudden. He flies around the room chasing you, and Lara will take considerable damage with each hit. It's not immediately obvious how to get rid of him, and the controls make this section incredibly frustrating. Lara auto-locks onto the ghost, which makes it almost impossible to run around the room, shooting him like in the past Tomb Raider games. She kind of shimmies around in the same spot over and over while you try to move her around. But for these annoying controls, this area wouldn't be very challenging. After we leave the Hall of Seasons, we return through the Tomb of Ancients. The room floods all of a sudden when you enter, and you've got to make your way out quickly. It's very straightforward if you remember where you came through the first time. We emerge back into the archaeological dig area, and now have access to a door we hadn't seen the first time around. After hopping a fence, we head back towards the Louvre. I like going back through the levels like this, so you have a feeling of how they're all connected. You know you're about to have some fun when you see the name of the next level on the loading screen, Galleries Under Siege. This is another favorite level of mine, and there's a ton of baddies to kill, which is great, considering our trigger finger hasn't had much use in the previous levels. This level is absolutely chaotic. Guards throw gas bombs, and Lara's air supply is running out quickly. A cutscene shows us there's a gas mask upstairs, and it's a lot of fun killing guards along the way while you work your way upstairs. Once we successfully get the gas mask, Lara receives a power-up with the ability to sprint. A cutscene begins of Curtis sneaking up on Lara. He's got a gun to her head as he removes her weapons and kind of weirdly feels her up. He decides to let her live and takes off running. Suddenly, a bunch of guards start shooting at her and she runs after Curtis. He uses his powers to burst open doors and his weapons to cut down an art piece to seal their exit. When she gets outside, he's lying on the ground. She bends down to see what's wrong and someone knocks her out. A new cutscene begins with Bouchard waking Lara up, saying they have to go. She tells him she needs to go back to Von Croy's apartment, that there's something she needs to check out. They hop into his car and Lara asks him what he was doing at the Louvre. He says she was attracting a lot of attention from the police and figured she would need help. He asks her if she'd prefer somewhere safer than Von Croy's apartment, and she says she found some leads that may link his death and insists on the visit. Once Lara leaves the car, Bouchard pulls out his phone and says, "She's inside now, you can send in the cleaner." The FMV that played at the beginning of the game begins again. This time we get to see more of what happened. Lara pushes him down and we see Eckhart appear. Lara is knocked out, a gun flies, and Eckhart holds Von Croy by the neck. Overall, this level is really fun. There's tension with guards hunting Lara, and we learn that she wasn't the one that killed Von Croy. Knowing Bouchard has betrayed Lara, you're definitely on edge when the next level begins. A quick check of your inventory will confirm your worst fear. All of your weapons are gone. This is an old trick, but manages to happen in almost every game. Luckily, there's a handgun lying on the ground and ammo spread throughout the apartment. It's really fun exploring his place, collecting ammo, health packs, and generally just snooping around. Suddenly, we run into the cleaner Bouchard called, and you soon realize the little pea shooter you found isn't going to do any damage. The sense of urgency and tension in this level is incredible. Laser traps line the hallways, and the music keeps you on edge. The cleaner is equipped with a SMG as well as pistols, and Lara will take an incredible amount of damage if she's hit. It's really challenging firing back to scare him off without being killed, but it's a sweet reward when he runs off and you can snatch his SMG. One of the best parts of the level is if you accidentally round a corner or misjump and land on a laser trap. Bombs go off and Lara dies instantly. Speaking of bombs, a quick cutscene shows us there's a bunch of bombs that have been activated and a massive explosion goes off. There's fire everywhere and it's complete craziness. If you catch on fire, you're dead as there's no way to extinguish Lara. Once we pump the cleaner full of bullets and finally kill him, we're rewarded with a sweet cutscene. Bouchard calls and asks, "Is she dead yet?" And you can't help but grin before Lara surprises him on the other end of the line and tells him she'll take care of him later. Overall, this level is a lot of fun. It's incredibly tense and you can die at any moment. Lara heads to Prague, and the next level, the Monstrum crime scene, begins with a quick cutscene. She talks to a reporter and learns there's been another murder. We learn the Strahov is the mafia center of operations in Prague, Bouchard is part of the gang, and Eckhart is the mafia's top guy. Naturally, Lara wants to get inside, and the reporter tells her she'll need an access card. The area looks pretty with all the snow, but there's not a ton of exploring to do. There's a couple guards and dogs to take out in the back alleyways, otherwise it's time to take a trip underneath the square and head to the sewers. I really like the constant contrast of being inside and outside, as well as nicer looking environments than really grungy and dirty ones. We find Bouchard in the sewers, and Lara demands to know the reason why he was trying to have her killed. He says Eckhart ordered it and that he's the monstrum. We also learn that Eckhart is protected by a group called the Cabal, which uses the Mafia front to distract attention from what's really going on. Also during this cutscene, we learn that Von Croy was hired to locate one of the 5 paintings, but he learned too much. Apparently, the paintings are needed to revive something called the Sleeper. Eckhart thinks he can use the Sleeper to breed the extinct Nephilim back, and a place called the Vault of Trophies is apparently where the painting is. One thing I really like about this game is how the cutscenes drive the story forward in an interesting way. They're connected very well to the gameplay and give just the right amount of info to keep things interesting. Lara heads to the library to have a look around, and while it's pretty small overall, it's still fun to explore. There's scaffolding to climb up, chains to pull, and a clock puzzle as well. Once we return to the reporter and share all the nitty-gritty, he gives her a low security pass for the Strahov. Better yet, if you're nice with how you decide to talk with him, he'll hook Lara up with a Scorpion X gun. Overall, this level's purpose seemed to drive the story forward with not a ton of gameplay in between. It was short and sweet and had contrasting environments which kept it interesting. We finally gain access to the Strahov Fortress, and it immediately reminds me of Tomb Raider Chronicles, the base level. There's shipping containers all over, and we know someone's home since there's a huge magnet moving them around. The background music is amazing. It instantly makes you feel all Silent Assassin-like, and you just know you're going to have to be careful. Lara even mentions she doesn't want to draw too much attention to herself. Then we get a glimpse into the following area with at least 3 guards patrolling with guns and flashlights. There are lots of guards to take out, and it's your choice to go Rambo on them or more Hitman and sneak up and snap their necks. Even though the design is simple, it really changes the pace of the game while you try to infiltrate the building without becoming detected. Once we make our way up crates, ladders, and explore which doors are unlocked, we gain access to the controls for the gigantic magnet. A cutscene takes over while Lara maneuvers the magnet around, taking out multiple turrets in the room. If you had decided to go in guns blazing, you wouldn't have had a chance. As we venture into the following area, there's a crate puzzle you need to solve in order to get over a fence. It really isn't all that fun, and I find it's more annoying than anything since there's so many crates to move. There are dogs to take out and hot steam that will kill Lara to try and keep things interesting. The area beyond has a bunch of ductwork, and Lara activates 2 gigantic saws to cut through them. Once we gain access to the ducts, Lara can see into another room and a cutscene plays. Luddick, the reporter Lara had just talked with, is dragged into a cell and Eckhart electrocutes him. As tough as Lara is, she can't watch. Eckhart leaves the room with Luddick's body burning behind. When we reach the end of the crawl space, there's guards lurking around, and it's total Tomb Raider 5's VCI headquarters when we roll out of the crawl space to take them out. A really cool part is shooting a canister of some sort that causes a huge wheel to start moving. It detonates bombs for you that are scattered throughout the laser-filled hallway. We work our way to a security control center, and Lara hops on a computer. She shuts off the power and says she better get moving while the grid's down. We get a glimpse of the power going out everywhere, and security guards start rushing like mad. We hear some sort of an animal and see a door open. One of the guards gets taken out, and the spiky creature is now on the loose. It's really fun taking out a bunch of guards that suddenly rush the control room, and now that the lasers have been turned off, we can exit the section and finish the level. Overall, this level is total badass. It has a mix of Silent Assassin and going on murderous rampages. There's tons of areas to explore and traps to avoid, which makes it a fantastic and really enjoyable level. The next level takes place in a bio-research facility, and the environment has a drastic change once again. We enter into a beautiful biodome filled with various plants, butterflies, and a fountain. Lara has also changed into a new outfit, camo shorts with a gray tank top. She runs into a man and a cutscene begins. She demands to know who he is and what his buddies are up to. He tells her the Cabal control everything in Prague, and Eckhart has the last element from Turkey to create the Sleeper. The trade-off is simple. For their help, Eckhart has promised them immortality. Apparently, someone named Boaz created a proto-Nephilim, but it was a disaster. He sprays Lara with what looks like pesticides and disappears. It's fun exploring the biodome where some of the plants spew gas and others attack Lara. Beyond this room is an area filled with tanks with green liquid housing mutant creatures. One of them breaks out of the tank and all hell breaks loose. This section is a lot of fun. There's mutants chasing Lara all over the room, running and rolling, all trying to take her out. Once they're dead, it's a fairly linear room, but hidden pipes, valves, and ladders make it interesting to explore. One of the highlights during the level is coming across a big pool of water which houses a gigantic, seriously creepy looking mutant fish. It looks absolutely terrifying, and if you accidentally fall in, or just want to hop in for a thrill, it's actually kind of a buzzkill. It'll go to attack Lara, but it doesn't actually do any damage. It just pushes her around the pool. There's a bunch of transversing in this area, and the room is complete with deadly steam, shut-off valves, pipes, climbable foliage, monkey swinging, and movable walkways. While the room is small, these challenges make it a lot of fun figuring out how to get to the other side of the room. There's also a valve puzzle we come across where we need to send a deadly mixture of chemicals to kill vines that block the exit. Beyond, a quick cutscene introduces the next room to us. A massive area filled with guards, multiple levels, and more plants than what we've seen so far. This room is a personal favorite. It's not clear where you need to go, so there's a lot of exploring to do, and of course taking out guards keeps things extra interesting. There's a variety of locked doors, broken sections of the floor, and difficult jumps. My one complaint would be when Lara says, "This ledge looks too far, I don't think I'll make it yet." At this point in the game, it seems silly to tell the player they can't make the jump before they try it themselves. Once we reach a certain section, another cutscene plays. Lara sees Dr. Muller, the dude who sprayed her with pesticides earlier, working at a computer. Eckhart and Gunderson approach him, demanding to know what's going on. Muller says the power failures aren't his fault, that they're happening everywhere. Gunderson takes over the computer and soon has things under control. Boaz arrives with news of problems down in the sanitarium. She confesses that she didn't kill the proto-Nephilim as requested because it can only be killed with Eckhart's shard. Eckhart is obviously not thrilled and as a punishment feeds her to one of Muller's creations. The rest of the level is pretty straightforward, collecting keycards to gain access to the next section of the facility. It ends with a cutscene where Curtis traps Lara inside an airlock, apparently to keep her from causing more trouble while he sorts out a few things. Before he takes off, Lara makes sure he sees the shard she took from him at the Louvre, which of course will guarantee he'll come back. Overall, this level is a lot of fun. The environment is beautiful but mixed with deadly plants and a variety of mutants. There's lots of guards to take out, and again, cutscenes do a great job of moving the story forward. While Lara has a timeout in the airlock, we finally get to play as Curtis Trent. This is the first time there's been a second playable character in Tomb Raider, and I remember being really excited the first time I played, since it added an entirely new element of gameplay. With that being said, the moment you start moving, Curtis feels pretty sluggish. He's slower to jump and crouch, so it takes a bit of adjusting to get used to. He also rolls kind of funny and grunts a lot, which is pretty entertaining. Weapon-wise, we start off with a Boron X pistol, and the description says it's a prototype pistol created by Curtis. The level begins at top of a deep elevator shaft, which of course doesn't have an elevator we can use. After making our way down using ladders and ledges, we go through the doors at the bottom and enter into the actual sanitarium. And if you didn't realize that, the dudes running around like crazy people will clue you in. Once we head into the sanitarium, one of the patients will attack Curtis. He's got long straps hanging down from his straitjacket that he whips at you. Curtis takes a decent amount of damage per hit. In one of the rooms, there's a man on a cot and a cutscene plays. The poor dude has just about lost his mind. After transporting the sleeper from Turkey, he and his comrades were locked up. He's been hiding out here, but his friends were fed to Boaz's creation, the proto-Nephilim. We noticed earlier on in the game that Curtis has some sort of weird powers going on, and it's here where we get to see him put to use again. We come across a locked door with a keypad, and Curtis says, "My Farsi ability will help here." He raises his hands, and suddenly his vision is able to fly through the hallways and into an office where we see a code written down. In the next area, we suddenly come across several dead guards. There's a ton of weird mutants to kill and a large dining area. There's inmates in orange jumpsuits walking around, and thankfully they're harmless. One thing I want to mention is the whole situation of Angel of Darkness being ridiculed for being a buggy game. Throughout all the times I've played this game, I've never once encountered a single game-stopping bug. The only bugs I've ever encountered were missing textures, and the sanitarium has several of those around doorways and some of the hallways. Once the camera got stuck inside of Lara's head, and you'd see these gigantic eyeballs, which was pretty funny, but Angel of Darkness is by no means a buggy game. The ending of Chronicles, in my opinion, was the worst for game-stopping bugs, and it was still an excellent game. Okay, back to the sanitarium. Overall, this level has a really creepy feeling. It's dark, grungy, dirty, and the mutants keep you on your toes, especially when they scare the crap out of you by jumping out all of a sudden. Things get a little creepier when we enter into a lab with a dead scientist and some weird beast that's shackled upside down with blood dripping out of it. I definitely checked a few times to make sure it wasn't going to suddenly break free and rip Curtis's face off. Once we find a code required to open the door to leave this section, another cutscene plays. A scientist is working when he suddenly hears strange noises coming from the ducts. The proto-Nephilim springs out and brutally attacks him. When we regain control, there's more mutants to take out, and we have no choice but to enter the ductwork to gain access to the lab we just got a glimpse of. One small mistake I noticed was when Curtis is walking, the walk symbol is the Lara one. A minor detail, but something that probably would have been fixed if Eidos had given core design more time to polish the game. A final cutscene plays as we reach the end of the level. The proto-Nephilim is feasting away on someone else. When it sees Curtis, it flees the room. Overall, this level is really enjoyable. I love the creepy feeling, and being able to play as Curtis is super cool. A few missing textures take the quality down a few notches, but it's a fun level and the mutants keep the tension high. We're not out of the craziness just yet, and the name of the next level, Maximum Containment Area, makes sure you know that. Mutants that look like Edward Scissorhands attack viciously and are really creepy. Curtis uses his Farsi abilities again for obtaining other passcodes, and while it's cool, it does take away the fun of going on searches for codes. Exploring the area is a lot of fun, and you're definitely on guard as mutants pop out of nowhere. At one point we come across the proto-Nephilim again, which actually takes out a guard for us, but we soon get some face-to-face time. A cutscene plays suddenly with the proto-Nephilim coming after Curtis. He uses his abilities to shut a door, but the beast makes his way into the room another way. When we regain control, it's time to try and kill the beast. He's not actually hard to kill, but the combat controls is what makes it difficult. You can't easily side flip or jump away like in the previous Tomb Raiders, because you're locked onto the target in an extreme way, which makes things frustrating. Every time you down the beast, he runs back to the ducts for a moment before returning. Finally, Curtis stabs the proto-Nephilim with his dagger and kills him for good. A cutscene plays, and Curtis returns to the airlock where he's trapped Lara. She's been waiting for him and kicks his weapon out of his hands and shoots a mutant standing beside him. They begin discussing why they're both there, all the while with Lara pointing a gun at him. Once they gain some trust, they talk about what to do next. Curtis talks about Eckhart's plan and tells Lara that he can be killed using all 3 shards. Curtis and Lara have 2 of them, but Eckhart still has the 3rd. Since Curtis can't swim, it's discussed that Lara goes to the Vault of Trophies to destroy the final painting, while Curtis goes after Eckhart's shard. The level finishes with one more cutscene. Eckhart and Corell are discussing the progress of his plan. He will allow Lara to find the final painting for him, and then his preparations will be complete. Overall, this level is pretty short, but the cutscenes are rewarding in moving the story forward, and it's an interesting dynamic to see Curtis and Lara finally working together. We're back to playing as Lara in the next level, and thankfully we still have all of our items and weapons that we left off with before playing as Curtis. We know we're headed into more secure areas once you spot machine guns in the room beyond. If you get too close to their sensors, they'll completely demolish Lara in seconds. They remind me of the guns in Tomb Raider 4, and it's great fun shooting the explosives nearby to get rid of the guns. The next area contains multiple pools with danger signs and another creepy creature like we saw in the bio-research facility. There's also some sort of monitoring system indicating the power is still out. The colors in this section are gorgeous. The blue and purple hues are really nice against the water, and the whole area looks awesome. The room is really big and filled with multiple staircases, walkways, and rooms. There are underwater observation rooms and various levers. Once we turn the power back on, more rooms become accessible. The only thing I don't like about this level is how quiet it is. it would have been more exciting if there were a few guards to take out, or even non-threatening workers around. It seems very strange that no one's there. One of the levers triggers a quick cutscene, showing a ton of blood and pieces of meat being dumped, and then it's obvious what the huge bucket on one of the walkways is for. Once you release the meat into the pool, the creepy mutant creature goes after it, and it's safe to swim. It is worth noting if you accidentally fall in beforehand, it doesn't hurt Lara. It just pushes her around like the previous mutant. It would have been cool if this one was dangerous, since you don't actually have to dump the meat in the water to finish the section. One of the rooms contains lockers and various ammo pickups. There's a soldier lurking inside, finally something to kill. Once Lara completes the final swim, a cutscene plays where she changes into a wetsuit and pushes a button which raises the water level in the room. Overall, this level is a lot of fun to explore with an interesting layout. My only complaint is the lack of baddies, which I think would have increased the excitement. The level begins with Lara underwater, and we have to make our way forward through the tunnel. It sections off many times, and it seems like there's nowhere to get air. There are underwater spike traps everywhere, which are really difficult to avoid, because there's also a strong underwater current you're constantly fighting against. If you can get past all of that, there's eventually an air pocket, if you can get to it before running out of air. There's a new move that's really cool. Lara kicks walls underwater and then does a flip. It's really fun to do and clears the way into the main section of the tunnel, as well as an air pocket. I absolutely love the underwater levels in Tomb Raider. There's always tension with watching your air supply, and more so when you don't know where to find a pocket of air. As we enter into the main room, we come across a bunch of statues around a circle with chains behind them. Luckily for Lara, one of the pickups in this room is an aqua lung, which greatly extends her air supply. Once the pressure is off, it's easier to begin exploring and figuring out what to do. Pulling chains moves certain statues forward to the center of the circle. The puzzle is fun, and once the 2 correct statues are moved forward, an energy burst breaks open the ceiling so Lara can escape. After she escapes the tunnel, Lara changes back into her dark tank top and camo shorts. From here, the rest of the level becomes very linear. As you progress through the tunnel, there's a huge boulder that crashes down repeatedly from the ceiling, and a lever that brings up floor tiles that disappear really quickly over a deep pit. The level ends when Lara retrieves the 5th Obscura painting and a cutscene begins. As the floor rises, bringing Lara with it, Eckhart claps his hands and congratulates her. He offers to trade Curtis for the painting, and seeing no other option, she agrees. Eckhart orders Gunderson to release Boaz, then tosses Muller down into the arena. Boaz goes after him, and Curtis quickly gives Lara a boost up to a ledge. He tosses her 2 shards and says he'll deal with Boaz. Boaz returns. Notably the hardest level in the entire game, and one that made some fans rage and not finish the game. It's hard for sure, especially with the wonky combat controls, but totally doable and extremely rewarding when you do beat it. Boaz is incredibly strong. She slashes with claws, bites, and shoots toxic green goo. Curtis can get knocked down very easily, and by the time he's standing up, she's already in for another attack. You need to shoot at all the sacks, but it's incredibly hard due to the lock-on targeting. He never aims at the one you want, and you have to keep tapping the key to make him switch. She's incredibly challenging, and it's high adrenaline the entire time. When you finally destroy all of her sacks and she goes down, a cutscene begins. Curtis says that wasn't so hard, but then of course she respawns as a different creature, and a sense of dread definitely will come over you. Fortunately, this version of her is very easy to kill. Just as Curtis turns to leave, Boaz uses her last bit of strength to skewer him through the gut. He uses his weapon and slices her head off, but you can't help but wonder why he didn't use that 5 minutes ago. Curtis falls to the ground. Overall, this level is incredibly frustrating and difficult, but once you get the hang of switching targets, it makes things a lot easier. As difficult as Boaz is to kill, I love this boss fight and the stress you feel while trying to take her down. The next level is very small and linear. Lara has to do various jumps across deep lava pits and gets a power-up for her legs. The best part is the timed door run where you have to sprint like crazy and jump across pits to get through. There's also a new move that's a lot of fun, a sprint jump that looks awesome. Overall, it's a very small level that probably could have been done in a cutscene, but the jumps were still fun and difficult to do. The final level of the game, Eckhart's lab, starts out in a tunnel filled with various spikes and lava pits. Lara enters into the lab where there's a lot to look at and explore. There's a big pool of deadly boiling water and a bunch of skeletons that are fun to beat the crap out of and send them to their death in the pits. There are a few files to locate and put them into receptacles. One of them is located in a cage, and the second you enter, it starts to sink. It definitely causes a panic as you try to get out before Lara is burned alive. Once all of the files are in the receptacles, it causes some weird liquid to pour down into the pool, which cools it and makes it safe to enter. Once we're finished with the first area, a cutscene plays as we enter into the final area. Lara spots Eckhart up on a ledge just as he's starting to revive the sleeper. She fires off a shot at him and he jumps down to attack. As the final boss of the game, you'd think he'd be really hard to kill, but in fact, it's very easy. There's a force shield surrounding the area to keep you inside. Eckhart hurls energy bolts at Lara, but you just have to stay in a commando crawl to avoid all of them. It would have been better if they varied between the heights, so you'd have to react much faster. Instead, Lara gets to have a quick nap on the ground while Eckhart pretends to look all scary. At one point, Eckhart makes 3 copies of himself, and then you need to punch or kick him. He switches to waves of fire next, which you can avoid the same way as before, by hugging the ground. Finally, a cutscene plays where Lara stabs him with the shard, but he's not finished yet. We have to repeat the whole process for a 3rd time, then we can sit back and watch another cutscene. Eckhart sinks to the ground, and Lara rushes in to finish him off with the final shard. Corel bursts out and grabs the shard, and Eckhart orders him to kill Lara. Instead, he stabs Eckhart in the head instead. Corel tells Lara he's been the one really pulling the strings, and tells her he's a Nephilim. He tries to convince her that he's been helping her out all along, transforming from Bouchard to Leduc and Curtis Trent. He asks her to join him, and as we see the symbol on his palm, it flashes Lara's memory back once more to Von Croy's killing. This time she remembers everything. When Eckhart demands to know why Von Croy hasn't brought him a painting, he said it would be too dangerous, but Lara would be capable. Eckhart kills Von Croy, but this time she remembers that he transformed into Corel. The cutscene returns back to the present, and Lara accuses him of killing Von Croy. He gets angry and starts to glow before taking off into the air. The last part of the game is a bit harder than Eckhart's part. Corel starts to shoot energy bolts, and we have to make our way up 2 sets of ladders and across platforms while avoiding being hit. Total reminiscent of Sophia Lee from Tomb Raider 3. Once we make the final leap, we can sit back and watch the final cutscene. Lara places the sand glyph against the sleeper's leg and swings down to the ground. He begins to glow and the light explodes, impaling Corel and spreading throughout the entire room. We see Lara a little bruised and battered, emerging into the arena where Boaz was. She picks up Curtis's weapon and it comes to life all of a sudden. It spins her around towards an exit and she smiles briefly before walking off into the darkness. Such a powerful ending that would eventually mark the end of Lara's time with core design. Thank you so much for watching my review of The Angel of Darkness. I absolutely love this game and has one of my favorite storylines in the entire series. As always, if you enjoy my videos, please follow me on Twitter and subscribe to my channel. See you later, guys.